how to pull yourself out of a hole, right? Metaphorical and mental, directionless, hopeless hole. If you feel stuck, watch this video. I reckon you're going to get something good out of it. First step for me, when I was previously stuck in a hole and I was like, oh my God, I feel like there is no hope for me. The first thing I did was look at the immediate, the present, right? So that I'm going to go into present, then I'm going to go back to the past, and then I'm going to go into the future. So looking at the present, making sure that you are safe and the immediate surroundings are safe. What do you have to do to make sure that you literally feel like you have the essentials? So the essentials being shelter, food, that security, even love, going and like checking in with the family, making sure there's people around you so you don't feel isolated. And then the next step in the immediate moment is trying to do the things that are going to minimize stress. We need to minimize stress. We need to make sure that we have a clear plan in our head of how we're going to get out of the hole, right? Say you've got a shitload of debt, something's happened, something's gone wrong. It's like, well, first step is get onto a payment plan. Figure out the steps so you can know, okay, cool, there is a clear path forward. So that immediate present is all of the usual stuff that we know, like going to the gym, stop drinking, looking after the body, bring your screen time down, all those things. It's harder to do than just to say, but immediate present first. Next, going back into the past, seeing if there's anything stored in your body that needs to come out. We all have trauma stored in our body, every single person. Depending on your circumstances determines how much, right? I'll give a classic example. When a man and a woman break up, the woman more often than the man will go to her girlfriends and express emotionally how she feels. She'll talk about it, she'll dive into it. That is a process of releasing the energy that is behind the breakup. Whereas the man, on the other hand, will seem like he's okay after the relationship. It'll be like, oh, she's really, she's hurting, and he seems to be doing okay. He's actually bottling things up where he will only get to, at best 95% recovery throughout his life because he still has energy and trauma and stuff stored in his body because he didn't actually express it. The actual expressing of things that have happened in our life is really important. So important not to suppress. So looking back into the past and analyzing trauma. Now, the way that I have worked through trauma, I had proper PTSD last year, right? And even at the start of this year, like I was waking up. When I looked at the definition of PTSD, I was like, holy shit, that's me, man. Waking up, fucking stressful states, heart rate going crazy, like, wow, man, dry reaching, fucking, it was hectic, right? And I'll share my story later, but that dealing with the trauma, so immediate present is first step, then dealing with things that have happened to you in the past. Now, the way that I've dealt with my trauma was through, I think it's called cognitive therapy or behavioral therapy, using narrative to extinguish the trauma, and then using narrative to reframe why something happened. So this traumatic event happened, and then putting a positive spin on it. Why did it? You can generally find a positive way to look at something if you dig deep enough, and then using the incident to empower you for something else. So I'll walk you through it in a bit more clarity. So you got to extinguish the trauma first. So the way that I extinguished the trauma was I sat there and I retold the story in as much detail as I possibly could, to the point where as I told the story, my emotional response went, and I had this huge emotional release, right? And I made sure that I finished the story. I told it all the way to the end. I came back a week later and I retold the story in as much detail as I possibly could, full sentences, start to finish. And the emotional release didn't go as high. Finished the story. I came back a week later, the emotional release wasn't as high. I came back a week later, the waves got smaller until I can retell the story, and that story has become boring. I've extinguished the trauma, and that isn't the end job. then rewrite the narrative as to, a positive as to why that happened. This happened, and there's a positive reason for it happening. Where, say it's a really extreme circumstance, like you're the victim of sexual assault, maybe that now has allowed you to be there for other people, and it has given you the strength to show up and be a defender, and now you're stronger from it, or you've got to find that strength. It has to be, and I know it's a super touchy subject, right? And I haven't been a victim of sexual assault, and I can't relate to that. I'm sure it's fucking way worse than anything that I've ever been through, but this is what I've learned. Trying to reframe the narrative, and then being able to link it back to the original event. So in that sexual assault one, which I don't know why I went to sexual assault, but in the sexual assault one, you've extinguished the trauma, you've rewritten the narrative, and now, so the new narrative is, it has empowered me to be there for other women who have experienced something similar, or that need someone to help them speak up, or to be there for them. And now I can also still go out, this is the last part of it, I can still go out and trust a man and put myself out there to find love, despite me having encountered something so traumatic. So it's extinguish it, rewrite the narrative, and then using the original, being able to do something despite the original incidents happening. And so that was the three sort of pronged part, which I learned how to extinguish and reframe trauma. So now it's not stuck in my body. So that's looking at the past. Fuck, that was deep, eh? So that's looking at the past. So we've looked at the immediate present, we've looked at the past, and then giving yourself meaning, giving yourself purpose, having a reason to live, something that you're passionate about. I've had like different business ventures and pursued things and tried lots of different stuff, and I've become obsessed with certain things before, right? Like I got fully obsessed with finances and the markets and trading, and I still am a bit obsessed with it, but it's not something that I would fight for and die for, right? I don't really give a fuck about, I find the economy and stuff interesting, I find the markets interesting, but I wouldn't fight for the economy and die for the economy. Who gives a fuck, right? I'd fight for and die for providing for my family, but it's a little bit different. What we want to find is meaning to why you're on this planet. And one way that you can do that is through an exercise where you look at what are the things in the world, in the entire world, that make you angry, that drive you crazy, that make you want to cry. And then you write all these things down from a big, like a large scale, the entire world. Next, what are the things within your community that drive you crazy, that break your heart, that make you angry? And you write all these things down, and then you zoom in a bit closer. What are the things in your family and friends, right, when you were growing up and now, past and present? What are the things that you notice in your family and friends that break your heart, drive you crazy, make you want to cry? And then, so you write all them down, and then you go into yourself. What are the things that drive me crazy about myself, past and present, that make me want to cry, past and present? And we write all these things down. Now I've got this entire list, right, zooming out into this funnel, and I can guarantee there's going to be a thread that goes through the entire list where it's like, oh yeah, I in the entire world, I'll just give you my example, right? In the entire world, I hated the disconnection that people are going through, where everyone's sort of in this isolated world of looking at their phones, and there's a lack of socialization, and there's a lack of intimacy, and there's just a lack of connection. And I found that the thread that I hated the most, that went all the way into me, I hated when I felt disconnected and isolated and wasn't socializing. And I found that thread that went all the way through all four things, and you should be able to find that as well if you really took your time and looked at world, community, family, and friends, and yourself. When you find out that thing that you are the most, that drives you, that thread, that golden thread, once you find that out, that's the problem that you're born to solve in the world. You fucking hate this thing. I fucking hate disconnection. I hate the thing, like, it's, if I could solve disconnection, then I would fight for that. I'll fucking die for that. It's the worst thing. Like, we're humans, we're born for it, so you can feel the passion, and I fucking, so you spark that passion by going through that process. Another thing to help fuel that passion, to give you that meaning, is figuring out who you're born to solve that problem for. And the way you can do that, a little exercise for you, is if you write down the 5 people that you'd want to spend every day with for the rest of your life, the 5 people that you fucking love the most, and then write down all 5 to 10 characteristics of each person, your favorite characteristics, what you love about them, and then you narrow it down, and you start to pick out, okay, you go through the list and you figure out the 4 key characteristics that you fucking love the most in a person. So then those 4 key characteristics, they're the kind of people that you're supposed to solve the problem for in the world, right? So the people that I'm supposed to solve the problem of disconnection for, they're thoughtful, they're playful, they're generous, and they're kind. If I can solve disconnection for these people, that is what you hate and what you love, and that pull ignites the fire for you to have meaning in your life. So that is giving meaning. That's looking at the future. We've extinguished trauma, looking at the past, and working on that immediate present of managing stress, setting up plans to get yourself to a place where you feel safe, where you feel loved and connected. So past, present, future, that is the way I get myself out of a hole. I hope you enjoyed that. If you watched all the way to the end, give us a like, give us a comment, let us know where you're at. If you ever want to chat and work through some self-development stuff, you know where to find me. Slide into the DMs. I host one-on-one sessions, I host group sessions, that sort of thing. And rock and roll.